If I held up a gold bar and a silver bar, and I asked you which one is money, you'd probably say both. And historically, you'd be right. For 5,000 years, they were the twin kings of wealth. But in 2026, that definition is getting people wrecked. Because while gold is a banker, silver has become a soldier. Gold sits in a vault, does nothing, and looks pretty. It protects wealth. Silver? It is currently fighting wars. It is guiding cruise missiles. It is the literal nervous system of every AI data center and every solar panel on Earth. Here's the terrifying reality that CNBC isn't talking about because it's too boring for a soundbite. We are running out. Not in a metaphorical inflation way. I mean physically, geologically. For the last 5 years, the human race has consumed significantly more silver than we have mined. We have been eating into the stockpiles of the last century. And right now, as we head into 2026, those stockpiles are critically empty. We are staring at a geological wall. The green energy revolution, the AI revolution, and the military-industrial complex are all fighting over the same shrinking pile of metal. This isn't a squeeze. A squeeze implies a game. This is a famine. Today, we're going to look at why silver is the single most strategic asset of the next decade, why $50 was just the warm-up, and why the poor man's gold is about to become the rich man's lithium. Let's decode the shortage. To understand the future, we have to look at the chemistry. Why did we use silver as money for 4,000 years? Because it was rare, durable, and shiny. The Romans paid their legions in it. The Spanish Empire was built on it. The British pound sterling literally meant a pound of sterling silver. But sometime around the mid-20th century, silver changed jobs. It stopped being just money and became the best conductor of electricity on the periodic table. Better than copper, better than gold. If you want to move an electron from point A to point B with the least amount of resistance possible, you must use silver. There is no physical substitute. This brings us to 2026. We are trying to electrify the entire planet. We are building 5G towers, millions of EVs, and massive solar arrays. Every single one of those things is a silver vampire. It sucks the silver out of the ground, locks it into a tiny paste or wire, and, here's the scary part, it never comes back. When you had a silver coin in 1890, it stayed a coin. It circulated. It was preserved. When you put silver into a Tomahawk missile or a disposable vape, it ends up in a landfill. We are transforming a monetary metal into a consumable fuel. We are burning the family heirloom to keep the house warm, and we are burning it at a rate that is mathematically impossible to sustain. Let's talk about the biggest vampire in the room: solar panels. 10 years ago, the silver market analysts said, "Don't worry, solar panels are getting more efficient. They will use less silver paste per panel." And they were right. The thrifting happened. Engineers figured out how to use less silver paste per unit. But they missed the forest for the trees. Because while the amount per panel went down, the number of panels exploded. We are installing solar capacity at a vertical rate. China alone installed more solar in 2024 than the entire world did in previous decades combined. And now the technology has shifted again. We are moving from older PERC cells to new TOPCon and HJT cells. I won't bore you with the engineering, but here's what matters. These new cells require 50 to 80% more silver than the old ones. So, just as the solar industry is scaling up, the silver intensity is going up with it. In 2025, the solar industry alone consumed nearly 20% of the entire global mine supply. One industry consuming 1/5 of the world's supply. And the International Energy Agency says we need to triple solar capacity by 2030 to meet climate goals. Do the math. 20% times 3 is 60%. If solar eats 60% of the silver supply, what is left for jewelry? What is left for electronics? What is left for investment bars? Nothing. Now, the standard capitalist argument is if the price goes up, miners will just mine more. Supply will meet demand. That works for copper, that works for oil. It does not work for silver. And this is the secret that Wall Street algorithms don't seem to understand. Here's the fatal flaw in the silver supply chain. 72% of all silver comes out of the ground by accident. It's a byproduct. Most miners are looking for lead, zinc, or copper. They dig up the rock, refine the copper, and find a little bit of silver on the side. It's a bonus check. Why does this matter? Because if the price of silver goes to $100 tomorrow, a copper miner isn't going to double his production. He doesn't care about the silver, he cares about the copper price. If we go into a recession and the demand for lead and zinc crashes, those mines will shut down. And guess what happens to the silver supply? It crashes too. We're in a situation where the demand is inelastic. We need it for tech, but the supply is unresponsive to price. You could take silver to $200 an ounce, and global production might barely budge for 5 to 10 years. It takes a decade to permit and build a new mine. We don't have a decade. We barely have 18 months of inventory left in the vaults. But let's pivot to something darker. The geopolitical situation in 2026 is tense. We have moved from a peaceful global trade era to a war economy era. And in a war economy, silver is a strategic metal. During World War II, the US government had a shortage of copper for the Manhattan Project, the nuclear bomb. Do you know what they used instead? They went to the US Treasury, borrowed 13,000 tons of silver, and used it to wind the magnets for the uranium enrichment centrifuges. Silver builds weapons. Today, every smart bomb, every drone, every fighter jet, and every satellite requires high-grade silver contacts. You cannot have a modern military without it. If you're the US Department of Defense or the Chinese PLA, you look at those dwindling stockpiles and you get nervous. You don't just buy silver when you need it, you panic buy it to secure your supply chain. We are seeing strategic stockpiling happen in the shadows. Governments are quietly removing silver from the open market. They aren't stacking it to hedge against inflation, they're stacking it so their missiles don't stop working in 2027. This is demand that doesn't care about price. The Pentagon doesn't care if silver is $30 or $300. They just need the metal. And then there's the buzzword of the century. Artificial intelligence. Everyone talks about NVIDIA chips, everyone talks about the software, but nobody talks about the plumbing. AI requires massive amounts of electricity. We are building data centers the size of small cities. To connect those chips, to manage that heat, and to distribute that power, you need the best conductor on Earth. We are seeing a massive spike in demand for silver-coated copper cables and high-end connectors. Goldman Sachs estimates that AI could drive a 160% increase in data center power demand. That is a lot of wire. That is a lot of switches. That is a lot of silver. We are building a new digital infrastructure on top of an old physical infrastructure, and the glue holding it together is AG, silver. If you're betting on AI, you are implicitly betting on silver. You can't have the software without the hardware. So, if demand is exploding and supply is stuck, why was the price suppressed for so long? Why did it stay at $20, $25 for years? Because of the paper market. For decades, the price of silver wasn't set by physical metal, it was set by paper claims traded in London and New York. Bankers would trade paper claims on silver for every 1 ounce of real silver in the vault. It was a confidence game. As long as nobody asked for the real metal, the game continued. But in 2024 and 2025, the game broke. The East, specifically China and India, stopped playing by Western rules. They started draining the physical metal from the West. The Shanghai premium emerged. Silver was trading for 10% more in Shanghai than in New York. Why? Because in Shanghai, you actually get the metal. This is the Great Migration. The physical inventory has moved east. The COMEX in New York is running on fumes. They are settling contracts in cash because they don't have the bars to deliver. When the market realizes that the paper silver is backed by nothing, the paper price decouples. The paper price becomes irrelevant. The physical price goes vertical. We are watching the end of price manipulation simply because the manipulators ran out of ammo. So what does this mean for your portfolio in 2026? Let's look at the gold to silver ratio. This measures how many ounces of silver it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold. Historically, in the Earth's crust, the ratio is 19 to 1. In the Roman Empire, the price ratio was 12 to 1. In modern history, it averages around 50 to 1. At the peak of the madness, it hit 120 to 1. Right now, even with the recent surge, we're sitting around 70. If silver just returns to its historical average relative to gold, and gold stays exactly where it is, silver has to double. But here's the kicker. Gold is at all-time highs. If gold goes to $4,000, which seems likely given the debt crisis, and the ratio reverts to 30 to 1, which happens in bull markets, do the math. 4,000 divided by 30 is 133 per ounce. That is 4 times from where we started the run. And that's conservative. If we hit a true shortage, a panic, the ratio could go to 15 to 1. We are talking about vertical wealth transfer. I want you to change how you look at this metal. Stop looking at it as a precious metal. Stop comparing it to Bitcoin. Start looking at it as a strategic energy commodity. The 20th century was the century of oil. If you control the oil, you control the world. The 21st century is the century of the electron. We are moving everything. Cars, heat, intelligence, war to the electric grid, and silver is the superhighway that allows the electron to travel. We have burned through the stockpiles of the last 100 years in just 2 decades. The mines are empty. The vampires are hungry. The governments are hoarding. The price of silver isn't going up because of inflation. It's going up because we are witnessing the extinction event of cheap silver. The era of $25 silver is gone. It will be looked at by historians as a bizarre anomaly where we practically gave away the most useful metal on Earth. In 2026, you don't want a promise of silver, you want the silver. Because when the music stops, there are 100 paper claims for every 1 bar. 99 people are going to be left holding a piece of paper. 1 person is going to hold the future. Which one are you going to be? YouTube's algorithm loves cat videos and gaming, but it gets a little nervous when we start talking about the collapse of fiat currency and the shortage of strategic metals. If you think this information is valuable, and if you think more people need to wake up to the physical reality of the market, do me a favor. Smash the like button and leave a comment saying Silver Squeeze. It forces the algorithm to show this video to people who need to see it. Let's spread the signal.